factor, and he is saying the nature of reality, which is eternal, unchangeable, and a systematic whole. So this
In itself,
what
in itself, the reality is unchangeable, but
yes
it
sir.
has an aspect of change as well. This is what is the contradiction that he says. The problem
Yes sir.
is the
No.
philosophers till now were seeing contradiction as a flaw. If there is a contradiction that appears, people were thinking that ये तो गलत है. गलत नहीं है. This is how the reality operates. For example, you can see the evil and the good both in this world only. You can see good people, you can see bad people. But good, what makes good good? Presence of evil only, isn't it? So the negation has to be there for affirmation to have any existence. Pain has to be there for pleasure to make any sense. So reality in itself, although unchangeable, but it has an aspect of change as well, where it realizes it's called it self-consciousness. It has its self-consciousness through the history, how it represents itself into history. So you'll say both things, not just unchangeable, but also the dynamic nature of reality.
Dynamic nature and not static, like others have said, like other philosophers. And then we see the realization of the absolute through the rational process of the dialectic process, which is once again a dynamic dynamic process, unlike the method of doubt and geometrical method and etc. So this method starts with thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, and this goes on until the absolute is realizing itself, and
When
goes
all
back to the
contradictions are resolved. Yes.
yes, to the starting point of the final absolute idea, and
Yes.
this goes on until answer.
Yes. Yes. So now the question is how Hegel knows that this is happening. The Hegel says that look at the history. So history has to be part of that reality only, no? That reality who created the world, or the laws that are operating in the world. It can tell us about that reality. So if you look at the history very closely, Hegel is the only philosopher who wrote philosophy of history. There are many people who have written history of philosophy. Okay. But only Hegel who has written philosophy of history. He says that if you look at history closely, you will see that there is some logic and rational process through which history is unfolding. Just look at the history of the Indian national movement, if you have read history. Just look at the history of an Indian national movement. The coming of Britishers after the coming of the Britishers when the Mughal Empire fell, okay, and then Britishers rose, westernization of it, westernization again, another kind of domination. Then for the first time, rise of Indian nationalism, okay, coming of great leaders like Gandhi. So everything is linked to each other. Nothing is happening randomly. Even the English education system, in a way, contributed to how Indians understood the subjugation done by the English people, because they were able to see that these same English people are investing resources in their own country, in their other colonies like Australia, but they are depriving our motherland. So the Britishers gave us English education, but the same Indian education was used by the Indians to understand the liberating thoughts of John Stuart Mill and Marius, like Immanuel Kant, etc. So Hegel says that if you look at history, at least the knowable history, there is a prehistoric history which we have no evidence of, but the recorded history only, you will see that it has evolved dialectically through contradictions. There have been contradictory forces, and whenever a new stage came, it was better than before. For example, the British Empire was in a way better than the kind of Mughal Empire that was existing before that, isn't it? Then the Indian national movement was in a way better. It was a contradiction of the Britishers. And then synthesis we got in independence. After independence, also post-independence, how history has evolved. coming up of socialism, then again left wing, right wing, and now. So everything is a dialectical process. You can understand it through history also. He says history is the basic evidence fact that we have in front of us to understand how absolute evolves itself through contradiction. And this history will keep on evolving until we have a system where there is no contradiction at all. So someone asks you, when will history end? When there will be no contradiction, it will end. So his student, Karl Marx, when you will study him in paper 2 in Marxism, you will see that he has used the dialectical method of Hegel to understand how the exploitation works and how we can overcome it dialectically, and how the history will end in communism when there is no contradiction. People do not have the exploiters and exploited, और सबकी needs fulfill हो जाती है वहाँ पे, and the history would end there because there is no contradiction at all. Got it? So history as a dialectical process is a means to understand how absolute works. So there is a very beautiful statement that which compares Hegel and Kant. The statement says that Kant is a philosopher of science. But Hegel is a speculative philosopher. Is a speculative. What happened? Hmm. And Hegel is the skin visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hegel is a speculative philosopher. Kant is a philosopher of science. Hegel is a speculative philosopher who delights in painting his vision of reality through the scenes and events of history. So even Hegel accepts that I am a speculative philosopher. But my speculation is not abstract, imaginary speculation. My speculation has a basis. What is the basis? It has a logic to it. How have I discovered this logic? Through the scenes and events of history, how history evolved. So this I have known. For example, he's given many, many examples. You remember that before capitalism, there was feudalism, right? In feudalism, the means of production basically was land. It was landowners and the ones who used to work under them. These landowners, these used to exploit the laborers, right? And there was no freedom in this system. Even the capital, there was a rising class who had money but did not have land, because land was something which was inherited. So they were not allowed to practice entrepreneurship and various other means of livelihood. So in a way, it gave rise to a better system of, due to its contradiction, it gave rise to a better form of mode of production, which is capitalism. In capitalism, people had freedom. So there was no caste, religion, or any place of birth related barriers. If you have money, you can, if you have the resources, you can do the production. So freedom is there. But again, there is exploitation because of the emergence of bourgeois. Bourgeois are the ones who hold capital, who own capital and means of production, and the proletariat, the workers basically, who work for these proletariat in return of wages. So the bourgeois exploit the proletariat a lot. They would make them do repetitive work, monotonous work, and give very less amount of money, right? So again, this is a limitation, contradiction of capitalism. That's why we have, even in the core capitalistic countries, they are adopting the socialistic model or the welfare model. That's why we have a welfare model today, which is accepted in India, right? And which is accepted worldwide also. US, you see, but in times of Barack Obama especially, he used to do a lot of welfare activities, many social initiatives were there, right? So they also accepted the welfare model, the kind of soft socialism, which could be compatible with capitalism, a kind of democratic socialism. So Hegel says the same thing, that whenever there is a system, this system comes because of the limitations of the previous one. But if the same system has any limitation or contradiction, then it will be dialectically submerged, or you can say dialectically, it will be succeeded by another system. The coming system would be better than the previous one, but if it is not complete, if it does not satisfy the needs of all the people, if it has any self-interest in it, if it does not represent the absolutely, then it will again be negated and will be synthesized into a higher version. There is a friend of Karl Marx named Engels. So there are this Engels and Marx used to work together. And since Marx was a student of Hegel, and he was very much influenced by the dialectical method, he was not influenced by the idealism of Hegel, but very much influenced by the historical method adopted by Hegel, the dialectical method adopted by Hegel. So the Engels, he highlighted 3 laws of dialectics, which you can use here also, because dialectics is common to what Hegel and Marx. The first law of dialectics is unity of opposites. In a dialectical progression or any manifestation of the absolute, there are 2 opposing entities which reside together. For example, if there is freedom, right? So in freedom, there are two things. The first thing is that it has liberty, but the negative part is it has license also. License means you can do anything. Freedom means one aspect is that you can creatively express yourself. There will be less of restraints, but other negative part of it is that one's freedom can be used to as a license to infringe upon the freedom of others. So everything is united with its opposite. There is no absolute good or absolute evil. If it is absolute, then there will be no opposite. So these laws of dialectics work only when the absolute is not realized. Once absolute is realized, then dialectics does not work. So if you have to understand how things are in the society, they will be united by opposites. And because of this opposite, there will be negation. This licensing thing will negate freedom, and a better system will come, which will say that, okay, we accept freedom, but freedom with reasonable restrictions. Okay, reasonable restrictions. So the thesis is freedom, antithesis is license and synthesis is freedom with reasonable restrictions. So unity of opposites. Second is negation of negation. Negation of negation, how? Freedom was negated by license. Now this license thing and freedom thing was again negated by the reasonable restriction aspect. So in a dialectical movement, negation is the heart. The first stage is negated in a form of antithesis, and both thesis and antithesis are negated in the form of synthesis. So synthesis, in a way, preserves the good part of thesis and antithesis, but rejects the limiting part of it. Okay. And third is quantitative to qualitative change. Now see, in freedom, in absolute freedom, there is quantity of freedom. But in freedom with reasonable restriction, there is a quality of freedom, that although free, you also exercise some restraints, because you are aware that my freedom is not there to impinge upon other freedom. There is a saying that your liberty ends where my nose begins. Okay, so there was a person who was roaming around in park with his stick. So he was revolving the stick, and then a person who was just also taking a walk, his stick somehow उसके ऊपर लग गया उसका stick. Okay, so that person said, "Mister, your liberty to revolve that stick and enjoy your walk is only till you are not impinging upon my liberty. Your liberty ends where my nose begins." So, in a way, freedom with reasonable restriction is a qualitatively better version of it. So these are the three laws of dialectics: unity of opposite, negation of negation, and qualitative to quantitative change. And the best qualitative change that occurs is that synthesis is a better version from thesis and antithesis, and the highest synthesis is your absolute. तो क्या होता है जब भी जो स्पिरिट है, अब देखो हीगल को एक तरीके से समझो कि ये जो एब्सोल्यूट स्पिरिट है, इसमें से एक स्पिरिट निकली, ठीक है? You can understand it as the attributes of Spinoza, ठीक है? तो स्पिरिट निकली, but when it modified itself, like modification हुआ उसका मोड्स की फॉर्म में, ठीक है? वो फाइनाइट हुई, then it lost its consciousness of the absolute. It forgot itself. जैसे कि आप उसमें भी सोचो, आपने प्लेटो में पढ़ा था कि the world of ideas, when the soul was in the world of ideas, it used to remember the forms, all the aspect of complete justice, perfect goodness was there within the soul. But when it fell, it came into the world of appearances or the physical world, it forgets. But through contemplation, through reasoning, one can again reach up to the absolute. So same thing happens. Although finite, it has the seed of absolute. So again, it will be evolving dialectically by presenting its negation and negation of negation in terms of synthesis. And this way, again, this will be negated in the form of antithesis, and this will continue until absolute is reached. Again, it becomes and merges with the absolute. So there is a another student of Hegel. His name was, I guess his name, I'm forgetting his name. He made a very beautiful statement that the absolute does not have its own history. Although, his name was Bradley. He was also an idealist, like Hegel. So I said, when Hegel used to sit here, there were people who used to sit to his left and to his right. Okay, the ones who used to sit at his left became leftist. They adopted the dialectical method, but they discarded his idealism. the ones who used to sit at his right, they accepted his idealism, and they are the so-called rightists today, because rightists are very much inclined to the idealism of Hegel, his theory of state. The state is march of God on earth. He says that if you have to see how the history moves to its zenith, you will see it in the German state, which is the epitome of history. And तो उन्होंने इस स्टेट को काफी ग्लैमराइज किया, बोला कि स्टेट जो है वो मार्च ऑफ गॉड ऑन अर्थ है, because just like God is selfless, state is also selfless. State works for the people. It protects the right of the people, just like God does this. Okay, so they adopted the idealism of Hegel. So Bradley was an idealist. He said the absolute does not have its own history, although it contains histories without number. Can anyone of you tell me that what he's trying to say? The absolute does not have its own history, but it contains history without number. Can you think?
Means, yes, sir. I guess he means to say that everything we see, history of everything, or all the manifestations we see today are coming from the absolute. So, although it doesn't have its own history, history of everything else is coming from absolute. I guess this is what he means, sir.
That in its essential aspect, absolute is unchangeable, but in its manifested aspect, like the spirits that come out of it, they again evolve dialectically to merge into the absolute, and they represent the absolute in the form of history. Okay, so where the history started, when the absolute was limited to this finite point, this limited point, and from now onwards starts the process of evolution. So what we call as evolution is basically the return of the spirit to itself. Hegel says that the Geist, he uses the word Geist for this. Spirit or a idea or consciousness, he uses the same word for all of these. Mind, idea, consciousness. The German word for this is Geist. The what we call as evolution is just the spirit's return to itself. Just reflect upon your own life. How evolved you have been from when you started as a child, and how much evolved your consciousness today is, your understanding today is. And it has happened because of those challenges that came into your life, not because of the favorable conditions. Nobody evolves due to favorable conditions. हमारे यहाँ पे एक कहावत है, ठोकर लग के मतलब whenever you are beaten, you get more knowledge rather than through eating almonds, isn't it? So the challenges, the limitation, the negation, in a way, matures you. It makes you closer to the spirit, the absolute. When we discuss Indian philosophy, there is a philosopher in India. His name is Shri Aurobindo. You also study him in history. So Mr. Aurobindo was first a freedom fighter. He was also selected in the All India Services of that time, the ICS, Indian Civil Services, at a very young age. But he quit the ICS. He joined the Baroda Service, Baroda State Service, then got into national movement. You will understand that he was a revolutionary person, but when he was arrested, and basically the people who used to fight for this ICS exam, no, us samay. So this exam used to happen in England, and the people had to study all the Greek philosophy, the Western philosophy. So he was well trained in all this Hegelian thought, Kantian thought, and also well trained in the Upanishadic thought, because his father was a very learned person. So he's in a way synthesized both the Western and the Indian philosophy. So you will see that he will talk very similar to what Hegel said. He said the Brahman, the absolute in India, the name for the absolute in India is Brahman. The Brahman is universal absolute in nature. But first of all, it conceals itself. It conceals itself to that finite point, what we call as Big Bang point. And from then evolution starts. But before every evolution, there is also an involution. Involution means kind of avataran, the self-concealment of the absolute, the universal into the particular. Why, and somebody asks you why the absolute does this, then the answer would be Leela. In Indian philosophy, it is called as Leela. Leela means play. It's a play. Play not in the general sense, like how we play. We play for our finite pleasures, for with some motive. But God's play is just a play that comes out of his essence, not because of he wants to achieve something or he wants to play by creating misery. Okay. All these misery, etc., are also part of his play only. Because how this is how the God realizes his own nature, like how diverse I am, what I can do, right? So this is, and from then it starts the evolution process, from matter to life to psyche to mind, okay, and to mind to self-consciousness. Humans have self-consciousness. That's why we are called as very close to God. We have self-consciousness, so we are not just conscious. Animals are conscious, but they are not self-conscious. So they are limited within the necessities of nature. But we can go beyond the necessities. That's why we can exercise restraint, we can fast, but humans can't, but animals can't, won't be fasting, right? Unless they are ill. But we humans do this. We have the capacity to put restraints on our own appetites, on our own what do we call as the greed, our appetites, our ephemeral desires. तो हम ज्यादा क्लोज हैं गॉड के बिकॉज हमारी कॉन्शियसनेस ज्यादा इवॉल्व है इस पूरी प्रोसेस में व्हाट यू से इज only the consciousness is expanding because within the process of history what you are saying is it is don't see the material part of the history, see the ideological part of the history. Don't see uh, the 1857 war, see the ideology behind this. What ideology came because there was no concept of India as a nation because it had disappeared through the thousands of years of slavery and because of regionalism, that was so much of regionalism got created in India at that moment. The princely state, the provinces, etc. So 1857 was the first time when the idea of India as a nation came, and from then onwards we see emergence of national leaders, people who actually put forth the idea of India as a culturally united country. So see the ideological part of how history has evolved. This is what he's saying. So idea corresponds to the consciousness, spirit. These are same things for Hegel, right? So the absolute does not have its own history. In its essential aspect, absolute does not change. But in its manifested aspect, the spirit, the kind of manifestations that absolute does, उसमें जो फिर evolution होता है और वापस return to itself, it's a complete circle basically. What we call as a complete circle, absolute, finite, and then to the absolute. So in that sense, history gets created. It creates history without number because absolute is infinite in nature. It expresses itself in infinite ways, but in every way there is a dialectical progression that is going on. So Hegel is a bit difficult to understand, but I guess now it makes sense what I'm trying to say. You understood what he's trying to say, Hegel? Or he has made mystery more mysterious, like people have commented.
Sir,
Hegel was allowed. Huh?
Sir, I didn't understand this histories without number. By this, does he mean to say that infinite aspects of
Yes, yes, yes.
okay, got
Without number
finite?
means yes. Without number
Yes,
means
sir.
it is not in finite ways. The absolute evolves itself in infinite ways. Not just one aspect of history, but many aspects of. History means what you can see retrospectively. It does not mean that history, modern history, ancient history, that thing. Understanding? Whatever you can reflect upon retrospectively is part of history.
Got it, sir. Yes, sir.
But sir, what does it mean without numbers? Since you said like it's representing itself in infinite ways.
Without number means you cannot count that only these aspects of this is how absolute has manifested itself. So human mind cannot fully grasp it by way of experience. The absolute has many ways. वो जो बोलते हैं ना हमारे यहाँ हमारे यहाँ पे एक कहावत है वो जो है ब्रह्म जो है वो उसके इनफाइनाइट एट्रीब्यूट्स है और इनफाइनाइट वेज में वो अपने आप को एक्सप्रेस करता है तो उस तरीके से कहना चाह रहा है
Like previously how there were like infinite qualities but only we could grasp only two kinds of qualities.
Yes, very much in that sense.
And also what's the difference between psyche and mind in Brahma?
Psyche, mind and Brahma, and this is the distinction done by Aurobindo, not Hegel.
Sorry, Aurobindo.
What he wanted to say is matter is the most, you can say, initial aspect, initial manifestation of the, or it is a very, you can say, unconscious part of the absolute, unconscious manifestation of the absolute. Then when the matter negates itself and evolves, it gets into a better and higher level of consciousness, which is life. So life does not evolve outside of matter, it comes from matter only. What science accepts as organic matter, Aurobindo says it's organized matter. So what we call as organic matter, he will say that organized matter, because there was some element within the matter which was organizing itself into the form of spirit, because spirit was dormant in matter.
So what's the difference between a psyche and a mind in Aurobindo?
Psyche and mind. Psyche, you can understand, it is mind is one which has capacity of making conscious decisions. For example, in animals, they can make conscious decisions. They have also its sign of intelligence. Psyche means you have awareness, like plants. They have awareness, but they do not have that kind of evolved intelligence that animals have. So you can say it's a more primitive form of intelligence, awareness, psyche. Okay. Psyche basically represents mind only, but in Aurobindo's philosophy, mind would represent that conscious and intelligent aspect of the absolute.
All right.
Okay. So this is the view of Hegel.
Also, so what's the difference between objective realism and objective idealism?
Objective realism and objective idealism.
Idealism. Yes, sir.
Or you want to ask that objective idealism and subjective idealism?
No, sir. Objective realism and objective idealism.
Objective realism is very simple. That object exists independent of the mind.
Okay, sir. And
that there are material objects that exist independent of the knower. Means they are not in a mind. Objective idealism means the ideas exist independent of the mind. So ideas have existence apart from the mind. For example, Plato says ideas reside in the world of ideas, not in our mind. Our mind just knows them.
Would they mean the same thing? It's just the difference between ideas and objects, right?
Yes. It's just the difference between matter and idea. What do you accept as the unit of reality? Generally, the word objectivism would mean as those who accept as matter as reality.
Okay. So, like John Locke's philosophy is both of them, right? Or
John Locke is a realist. He's an indirect realist. He accepts matter, but matter is not known directly. So he's called as indirect realist. But yes, matter does exist independent of our mind.
his philosophy won't be called objective idealism.
No. It will not be called as objective idealism. It does not accept ideas to be independent of the matter. Ideas depend on matter because of sensation reflection.
Understood.
Okay. Any other question? Just 1 second, I guess. Let me just open that PDF so that we can cover all the aspects. Yes. So what we said, Hegel's project kya hai? Hegel's project is to show that reality and thought are not separate. Rather, reality is a rational process that unfolds dialectically and human mind can grasp it fully. So what Kant said is limitation of human mind. Kant said that there is a limitation of human mind. Human mind cannot grasp phenomena because human mind has a innate structure only through which it can know. And innate structure would work only when there is a percept. Of phenomena, we have no percept, so phenomena unknowable. Hegel says that all aspects of reality, whether percept concept, whether phenomena are interconnected. So phenomena is also part of phenomena only. It's just that you have restricted yourself to phenomena. Very, very एक important saying है Hegel की, to know the limit is to know what is beyond.
Sir, the screen is not visible, sir.
The screen is not visible? Okay. Let me try. Since when it is not visible? Just now or?
Yes, sir, just now.
Just now. Okay.
Yes, sir, it's visible now.
So I was saying this, that if you look at Hegel's project, what it is, the reality and thought are not separate. Kant said that there is a reality which resides in phenomena and our thought is confined to phenomena. Hegel said that reality is a complete process. It is an interconnected process. So our thought and the reality in itself are in a way connected. It's just that you have restricted your mind from surpassing the limit. You knew the limit. जैसे मुझे पता है कि भाई मैं बोलूं कि राम है बट मैं उसको नहीं जानता, बट मैं इतना तो जानता हूं ना, there is someone named Ram and he exists. So why can't I take few steps further and try to know him? So if you have mind and through mind you know that there is something which exists, because morality won't be there if there is no God, right? And to the extent he says that Kant also says in respect of the criticism to Hume's bundle theory. You remember Hume ने बोला था कि soul is nothing but a bundle of impressions and ideas. उसका बहुत famous statement है ह्यूम का कि when I enter most intimately into what I call myself, तो मुझे हमेशा से कुछ ना कुछ perceptions मिलते हैं, impressions मिलते हैं, love के, hatred के, pain, pleasure, doubt, thinking. उसके अलावा मुझे आई जैसा कुछ नहीं मिलता. There is no self, permanent stable self नहीं मिलता मुझे. So what is self? Basically bundle of all these impressions which are running so fast that illusion of unity is getting created in the mind. Kant says that the knower cannot be known. You say that when I enter intimately, क्या बोला ह्यूम ने? व्हेन आई एंटर most intimately. So the I which is entering cannot know itself. The knower cannot know. Knower cannot be known. But it is only on account of the existence of the knower that knowledge is possible. If there is no light, then objects will continue to exist, but it will not be known. अगर आप कमरे की दीवार की लाइट बंद कर दो, हर जगह से अंधेरा कर दो, तो ऑब्जेक्ट तो होंगे जगह में, मतलब चीजें तो होंगी, रियलिटी तो होगी, but it can never be known. The knower just throws light on the objects of the world. So without knower, knowledge is not possible, says Kant. But the knower cannot be known because knower belongs to the noumena. The self belongs to the noumena, but but all knowledge presupposes the existence of self. So although self exists, but we cannot know it. Hegel says that you say that self exists, but you cannot know it. ये तो बड़ा एब्सर्ड वाली बात है. आप बोल रहे हो कोई चीज एग्जिस्ट करती है बट मैं उसको जानता नहीं. इतना तो जानते हो ना वो एग्जिस्ट करती है. तो थोड़ी और कोशिश क्यों नहीं करी आपने? आपने इसलिए नहीं करी क्योंकि आपका लॉजिकल सिस्टम सही नहीं था. आपने सोचा कि जो रियलिटी है वो कोई स्टैटिक रियलिटी है. रियलिटी खुद ही डायनेमिक है, तो उसको जो समझने का तरीका है, जो रीजनिंग है जिससे थ्रू अपना को इवॉल्व करती है, वो भी डायनेमिक ही होगी, वो तो स्टैटिक नहीं हो सकती. तो हीगल ने बोला कि आपको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि ये रियलिटी अपने को कैसे अनफोल्ड करती है. ये डायलेक्टिकली अनफोल्ड करती है, तो लॉजिक को भी डायलेक्टिकली ही रीच करना पड़ेगा टू नो द एब्सोल्यूट. तो फिनोमेना बेसिकली व्हाट ही सेज इज Hegel aims to demonstrate that all aspects of reality are interconnected, and this interconnectedness is best understood through this dialectical method. Kant could not understand this dynamic nature of reality. It is not just Kant. Hegel says any philosopher before him could not understand this dynamic nature of reality. And the problem was with their logical system. Because Aristotle के time से एक ही logic चल रहा है. Since the time of Aristotle, only this logic is being practiced. और इसी से स्कोलास्टिसिज्म आया, इसी से कांट ने अपनी कैटेगरीज जो थी 12 कैटेगरीज वो डिड्यूस करी. और ये जो लॉजिक है ये बेसिकली एक स्टैटिक लॉजिक है. इसमें मैंने बताए थे 3 प्रिंसिपल्स होते हैं. एरिस्टोटेलियन लॉजिक के 3 प्रिंसिपल्स होते हैं. द फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल इज कॉल्ड एज प्रिंसिपल ऑफ आइडेंटिटी, विच सेज दैट टू बी एन आइडेंटिटी, मतलब हम कोई चीज बोले कि किसी चीज की आइडेंटिटी है, तो इट हैज टू बी इटसेल्फ ओनली, नॉट अदर. राइट? द एंटिटी इज आइडेंटिकल टू इटसेल्फ एंड रिमेन्स कांस्टेंट, बिकॉज इफ इट चेंजेस देन इट कैन नॉट हैव एन आइडेंटिटी. तो वो बोलते थे कि A is A only, A cannot be B. A is equal to A. This is expressed as A is equal to A. The principle of identity. Hegel says that every identity includes difference. Identity is incomplete without difference. किसी भी तरह की आइडेंटिटी हो, फॉर एग्जाम्पल हम बात करें फ्रीडम की. So freedom is a concept. It has both the aspect, the liberty wala aspect and also the license wala aspect. So it has difference also. License in a way negates liberty or freedom. So हर concept का difference उसके अंदर मौजूद होता है. प्रॉब्लम क्या थी, पहले के फिलोसफर जब भी डिफरेंस देखते थे, कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन देखते थे, तो उनको लगता था कि भाई ये तो लॉजिकल फ्लॉ है. आपको ध्यान है हमने कैसे डिफाइन किया था एनालिटिक चीजों को? द डिनायल ऑफ विच इन्वॉल्व्स कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन. द अपोजिशन, डिनायल और डिफरेंस ऑफ विच, यू कैन से एंड यूज एनी वर्ड, कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन ऑफ विच इन्वॉल्व्स कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन. और कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन को देखा जाता था एज अ ऑब्स्ट्रक्टिंग फोर्स, as if contradiction is a wrong thing. Hegel says contradiction is the engine. Without contradiction, nothing can evolve. जैसे हमने अपना ही एग्जांपल दिया अपनी लाइफ का. अगर लाइफ में हमारे contradictions नहीं आते, if there were no opposers, if there were no challenges, then would have never become a mature person. यू हैव नेवर बिकम एन एजुकेटेड पर्सन, थोड़ा और जितना इवॉल्व समझदार हम हैं आज, इसीलिए कि जो चैलेंजेस हमारी लाइफ में है, फेलियर्स हमारी लाइफ में है ना। आप देखते हो गॉड्स की स्टोरी, जैसे जीसस की स्टोरी देखो, जीसस जीसस क्यों बने? जो पेन उनके ऊपर हुआ है ना, जो उन्होंने पेनफुल लाइफ जी। बुद्धा बुद्ध क्यों बने? इतना सब कुछ होते हुए भी ही लेफ्ट एवरीथिंग and he lived a life of austerity. Similarly, Mahavir Swami, if you see, he was also a king. He left everything, lived naked, है ना, austerity, extreme austerity, तब, and he became Jinnah, conqueror. He conquered himself, his all desires, सब कुछ। तो challenges जो हैं, वो ही हमारे हमारे हमेशा साथ होते हैं वो, और वो ही हमको मोटिवेट करते हैं आगे बढ़ने के लिए। तो ऑल आइडेंटिटी, हीगल सेज, इज आइडेंटिटी एंड डिफरेंस। ये यूपीएससी ने क्वेश्चन भी पूछा है कई बार, यूपीएससी में, मेंस में, दैट ऑल आइडेंटिटी इज आइडेंटिटी एंड डिफरेंस। So the earlier philosopher did not understand this dynamic nature of logic also, because they viewed reality also as very static. Then principle of non contradiction, जैसा अभी बताया मैंने कि एरिस्टोटल ने लॉजिक के अंदर जो कोई भी चीज है, इट कैन नॉट बी बोथ ट्रू एंड फॉल्स एट द सेम टाइम। कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन नहीं हो सकते। कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन वाज seen as an obstruction, but Hegel says that reality is full of contradictions, which is not flaws but the essential aspect of its own unfolding. आपने चाइनीज वो सुना है, यिंग यांग? कभी चाइनीज थियरी है यिंग यांग वाली, कि पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव, देयर इज नो पॉजिटिव विदाउट नेगेटिव, है ना। हम जनरली भी हम समझते हैं विदाउट इविल देयर इज नो गुड, without suffering there is no happiness, there is no fulfillment. Then principle of excluded middle, it says that a thing can either be or not be. For example, sky cannot be blue and not blue at the same time, although sky जो है वो ना ही तो blue है ना ही वो है, but for just example, sky cannot be blue and not blue at the same time. So excluded middle, लॉजिक के अंदर मिडिल नहीं होता, लॉजिक के अंदर चीजें फिक्स्ड होती हैं, मिडिल नहीं होता, है ना। मिडिल कहाँ होता है? आपके जो मेटाफर्स होते हैं, मेटाफर्स में काफी, जैसे आप कविता पढ़ोगे, कविताओं में बड़े मिडिल होते हैं। हम गॉड को कई बार डिफाइन करते हैं तो बड़ा ऐसे बोलते हैं, गॉड जो है लंबा भी है, छोटा भी है, काला भी है, गोरा भी है, सुंदर भी है, ऐसा भी है। तो हम कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी बातें करते हैं गॉड के बारे में। बट ईगल, अगर आप ईगल से पूछोगे तो बोलेगे इसमें कोई कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन नहीं है। कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन है, बट इट इज नॉट अ फ्लॉ, इट इज हाउ द गॉड इज, dynamic in nature. So law of excluded middle. Hegel says that all identity is identity in difference, that identity is not merely affirmation of what something is, but also the recognition of what it is not. आपने किसी समय अपनी लिमिटेशन रिकॉग्नाइज की होगी कि मैं ये नहीं कर सकता, या फिर मेरे अंदर ये कमियां हैं, उसको जान के आपने उसको ओवरकम करने की कोशिश की। इट्स अ प्रोसेस ऑफ सेल्फ ओवरकमिंग, ठीक है। इसी से एवोल्यूशन होता है। द कंसेप्ट ऑफ नेशन इज डिफाइंड नॉट जस्ट बाय व्हाट इट इज, but also what it is not, like the other nation, the other culture. So identity is therefore always relational and dynamic. If there was no other country than India, then how would Indians be different from others? Why we would call ourselves Indians? Why there will be Chinese? Because there are other people, different people. So identity always presupposes a difference, says Hegel. ठीक है, तो समझे? दिस इज द डिफरेंस। आगे जाके एक फिलोसोफर आते हैं, रसल, लॉजिशियन बहुत बड़े, जो इन 3 लॉज ऑफ लॉजिक को जस्ट रिड्यूस कर देंगे प्रिंसिपल ऑफ आइडेंटिटी पे। बट अभी तो आप हीगल को समझे। हीगल बोलता है कि एरिस्टोटेलियन लॉजिक में फ्लॉ है। लॉजिक जो है वो डायलेक्टिकल होता है, चेंजिंग होता है। देन फ्रॉम डायलेक्टिक्स टू एब्सोल्यूट आइडियलिज्म, हाउ डू यू रीच? डायलेक्टिक्स इज थीसिस, एंटीथेसिस, सिंथेसिस. In each stage there is unity of opposite, ठीक है। हर चीज के अंदर there is a unity of opposite. Then negation होता है, negation of negation, and quantitative to qualitative change. Qualitative change. The three laws of dialectics. Within matter only, its negation was present. Matter means absence of consciousness. Matlab, it prima facie, it's absence of consciousness. But the seeds of its own negation, consciousness, the organic matter, was present within it. And from matter only, consciousness emerged. Right? The seeds of its own negation, unity of opposite, negation of negation, and quantitative to qualitative change. Because matter was so much, but there was a qualitative change in terms of mind, life, okay, psyche, as people call it. So consciousness जो emerge हुई, it was a qualitative change. फिर consciousness में भी self consciousness जब emerge हुई, it is more qualitative change. Because consciousness में self consciousness आने के लिए पहले others की consciousness भी होनी चाहिए. तो फिर आती है self consciousness कि how I am different from others. तो self consciousness आई. अब supreme consciousness आने के लिए I ego को भी negate करना पड़ेगा, तब supreme consciousness आएगा. This is how we say. So this is how you reach dialectically to the absolute idea. Each stage of reality, whether in nature, society, or thought, represents a moment in the self-realization of the absolute. So it's just the leela of absolute only. The absolute limits itself, और फिर वो अपने आप को हिस्ट्री के थ्रू रियलाइज कर रहा है, देख रहा है, जान रहा है. ठीक है, इस तरीके से उसने एक्सप्लेन किया. और उसने सारे पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम, जैसे कि फॉर एग्जांपल पहले था मोनार्की. व्हाट मोनार्की रिप्रेजेंटेड? Monarchy represented a stable political system, which was a positive thing, but the negative thing was people had duty but no rights. People had duty but no rights. So this monarchy was contradicted by democracy. Monarchy means rule of one. Democracy means rule by many. What was the positive thing in this? That people had a say, people had rights. The negative is instability. Sort of instability, and you can say politicize this what you can call it, partisanship. Political parties became dominant. Here one leader was dominant, here many these parties become dominant. Then these two, as per Hegel, has been synthesized qualitatively into what he perceived as a best form of government, constitutional monarchy. This was for Hegel the best form of government, because monarchy is there, but the monarch is not absolutely free. He is limited by a constitution which does not allow him to act as per his whims and fancies. So ये better system है as per him rather than democracy. ठीक है, और भी वो बोलता है जैसे एक फैमिली होती है. Family is thesis. Civil society is antithesis. And state is synthesis. In family, there is altruism. That member of family think about each other. But every family think about itself only. So that is the limiting factor of every family. The unity of opposite. In civil society, there is, you can say, universalism. That there are many families out there. But the problem is, again, every society limits itself. हर society अपने आप को limit कर लेती है अपने cultures उसमें. तो एक state होना चाहिए which is purely altruistic plus universal. तो इसमें altruism था, इसमें universalism था. State में दोनों चीज है, altruism plus universalism. That's why Hegel says state is march of God on earth, because God में भी दोनों चीज है. God is compassionate, altruistic. God को खुद को तो कुछ चाहिए ही नहीं, है ना? Because मतलब कैसे, मतलब कोई जिसके पास सब कुछ है, जो सब कुछ देने वाला है, उसको खुद को तो क्या चाहिए होगा. So state is altruistic. State is higher reason. Hegel कहता है कि higher reason should govern the lower reason. Should govern the lower reason. What is lower reason? people who are driven by their appetites, their selfish needs, they are not evolved rationally. But state does not mean a person. State means an institution which is there to protect the people, their rights, work for their welfare. That's why we should listen to the dictates of the state. Hegel made again a very remarkable statement which you will use in political philosophy. He said, perfect obedience to the perfect laws of perfect state is perfect freedom. Perfect obedience to the perfect laws of the perfect state is perfect freedom. So what is freedom? Freedom is not doing what you want, rather submitting your freedom, submitting your obligation and duty to the higher reason, which is the state. Perfect obedience, unquestioned obedience to the state, because state is the institution which should make perfect laws, because the state does not have any selfish interest. It is universal, it is altruistic in nature. So one should obey it. Now, this concept is very controversial because it paved the way for Nazism. Okay, तो जो कट्टरपंथी आपको नाजिज्म में देखती है और राइट विंग नेशनलिज्म में दिखती है, तो Hegel is the father of right wing nationalism and Nazism. He's the ideological father of all this. Although Hegel would never say कि हिटलर जैसा कोई आदमी आना चाहिए, but जब प्रैक्टिस में कोई चीज आती है ना तो ऐसे ही होता है. दिस इज व्हाट मार्क्स वुड क्रिटिसाइज. हीगल बातें तो बड़ी करते हैं, बट जो प्रैक्टिस में आती हैं वो चीजें, उनके इम्प्लीकेशंस कुछ और होते हैं. सो यहाँ से आपको समझ में आया होगा व्हाट हीगल इज ट्राइंग टू से. The higher reason should evolve the lower reason. Higher reason is basically the qualitative evolution that has happened in synthesis, और वो दोनों thesis और antithesis से बेहतर होता है. So the thesis and antithesis should submit voluntarily to synthesis to both preserve their identity and maintain their, मतलब अपनी आइडेंटिटी को मेंटेन भी किए हुए ना thesis antithesis in the synthesis. तो हम जो इंडिविजुअल्स हैं हमको सबमिट करना चाहिए to the will of state so as to preserve our rights, our existence, है ना, our identity, ऐसा हीगल कहते हैं. So did you understand? उनके लिए गॉड वही है, एब्सोल्यूट एंड गॉड आर सेम. अच्छा, ये मटेरियल पढ़ा है आपने? Just give a read to it and we'll surely discuss the points in this. एक बार आप पढ़ लो इसको. Just take 5 or 10 minutes and read it. We'll take a break for 5-10 minutes और तब तक आप इसको पढ़ लो. I'll just pause the video till then. You can read it through your own screen. I'm here only so you can ask questions. जब भी आपको बीच में पढ़ते हुए कोई question आए, you can ask. This PDF has answer to all the previous year questions of UPSC regarding Hegel. And examples, so I've already given you many examples. अगर आप इतना लिख दिए तो आपके बेस्ट मार्क्स होंगे, क्योंकि कोई स्टूडेंट समझता ही नहीं हीगल को इतने डीप में. हीगल को सब इतना लिख के आते हैं, थीसिस, एंटीथीसिस, सिंथेसिस and absolute idealism, the dialectical logic, dialectically it reaches to absolute. But nobody talks about what was his critique of traditional logic, the examples that he has given, his examples from political science, nobody gives. अगर आप दोगे तो आपका आंसर बहुत अच्छा जाएगा. So let me ask you a question. Very simple question. That you have to give me number of points as to how Hegel has resolved the Kant's problem. Let's brainstorm on this. जैसे आपने ह्यूम को कैसे इंप्रूव किया था कांट ने, उसको किया था, हीगल को देखते हैं. प्रीवियस फिलोसफर को समझने से जो हमारा एग्जिस्टिंग फिलोसफर है वो ज्यादा अच्छे से समझ में आता है, बिकॉज हमको बैकग्राउंड पता लगता है कि वो क्या कर रहा है बेसिकली बार बार. सो हाउ हैज ही रिजॉल्व द प्रॉब्लम्स ऑफ कांट? पॉइंट्स बताइए.
He removed the dichotomy of nomina and phenomena. And sir, he
Okay.
told phenomena is nothing but reflection of absolute idea. So that's the first thing, sir.
No dualism. He unified the reality. The reality is a interconnected, unified whole.
Also, he further
provided
analyzed. Also, he further analyzed that, like, from the antinomies and the other part, he further went to the next step for giving a synthesis, which is a better part which helps in the evolution and takes it to the absolute spirit.
So he talked about dialectical development and that we can resolve antinomies through dialectical development. Yes, Kiran was saying something.
the same points. He has provided the dialectical method to resolve those unity of opposing ideas.
Yes, his dialectical logic has resolved the opposites which were created in Kant. He has also
Yes.
resolved, if I say that he has resolved the difference of subject and object, would you agree with this? Would you agree with this? Subject and object. If you remember Kant, अभी हमने कांट की बात करी थी, तो कांट ने क्रिटिसाइज कैसे किया था ह्यूम को? Hume said that when I enter most intimately, so Kant says that who enters? It's I. This I cannot be known, but because of it, all knowledge is possible. This I does not come in knowledge, but because of it, all knowledge is possible. For example, Kant is trying to say that if you make a proposition that rose is red, this is a piece of knowledge. But if I have to say it very logically, I would say that I know, this I knows that the rose is red. But this I never comes into knowledge. So it was a dualism of knowledge and knower. Knower and knowledge. Subject and object, which was created by Kant. How has Hegel resolved this into a unity? This can be asked. Did you understand the view of Kant first? And how Kant has created knower knowledge difference? That this knower does not come into knowledge, but all knowledge is made because possible of this. That's why एक टर्म है कांट में जो हमने उस वक्त नहीं बताया, but आपको भी जो क्वेश्चन डिस्कस करेंगे उसमें मिल जाएगा. He says this I is transcendental because it does not come into experience, transcendental, synthetic unity of a perception. So all are a perception, basically are united perceptions. Who synthesizes them as a unity? There is a transcendental condition working behind this I, this knower, this self, which unites all these this a perception that comes to us, it unites it. So it is the condition which is behind all these categories, all these space time, है ना? जैसे होता है ना कि कोई फ्रेमवर्क है, जैसे आपके जैसे I gave the example of the idli, what you call as idli का वो आता है जो सांचा आता है, but there is a cook who is behind, who is putting that raw ingredient into the templates of idli, and then final product is coming out. So who is that cook here? That I. But in the physical sense, the cook is appearing. But in the knowledge sense, ये जो I है, जिसकी वजह से सारे कैटेगरीज और ये सब काम कर रहे हैं, ये पीछे से वर्क करता है, ये कभी नॉलेज में नहीं आता. But because all knowledge presupposes a knower, so we know that knower exists. But we cannot logically know this knower. The problem before Kant was this, that philosophers was trying to explain this knower logically. Doubter, I think, therefore I am. I think, so Kant would accept I think, but I am, therefore thinking is going on, he will accept. But how does it prove that there is a knower? You cannot prove the knower. It is a condition that exists. We cannot prove it. It belongs to noumena, thing in itself. So this is a duality that he created, Kant created, the knower and the known. How does Hegel resolves this duality of subject and object? बहुत सिंपल है. अगर आप लॉज ऑफ लॉजिक, लॉज ऑफ डायरेक्टिक भी सोचोगे तो आपको याद आ जाएगा. Am I audible? Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
So if you reflect upon the laws of dialectics जो हमने बताए थे अभी, वहां से भी याद आ जाएगा आपको. What was the first law of dialectic?
Unity as the identity, sir, is the first law.
Unity of opposites.
Unity of opposites, yes. That the contradiction is inherent.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
So although they appear as opposites, but they are united. Even if you look at how absolute evolves itself. So the spirit which becomes an object, and there is a knower within this spirit only, which knows. So this interplay happens with this is what he calls as self consciousness. Self consciousness मतलब मेरे अंदर भी कोई है और मैं उसको जान रहा हूँ. जैसे हमारे अंदर होता है ना, we can reflect upon our thoughts, but these thoughts are not they are not apart from us, isn't it? They are united with us. So in this sense, these spirit and so the spirit जो है वो खुद ही ऑब्जेक्ट बन जाता है और उसी के अंदर नोअर भी है. अंडरस्टूड? स्पिरिट के अंदर ही वो मौजूद है कैपेसिटी दैट इट बिकम्स ऑब्जेक्ट एंड एट द सेम टाइम इट आल्सो नोज इटसेल्फ. जैसे हम खुद को ही देख लें, वी हैव थॉट्स and we know that we have thoughts. So thoughts then become object and the reflector becomes subject. But they also are intertwined. They both are intertwined. They exist together. The thoughts cannot exist without a thinker. Thinker की वजह से ही thoughts आते हैं. Right? So this is what he's trying to say. The knower and known exist together. Only apparent difference is there. Apparently ही अलग है वो, और ये apparent difference भी आगे synthesis में खत्म हो जाता है.
So he's justifying the Descartes, like I think, therefore I am.
in a way. But he would not accept that Descartes has accepted material world.
No.
For Hegel, there is no matter as such. Matter and spirit are united in a way. Descartes' view was a dualistic view, right? We call it Cartesian dualism. He would accept
Sir,
that
maybe
thinking
can
principle.
we say like he is somewhat similar to Aristotle, like both substance and forms exist together, and is it similar, sir?
Within form they exist together, but what he is
Yes,
saying is थोड़ा similar है, because again, but इसका जो logic था, जैसे वो सिर्फ linear evolution हो रहा था उनका, ये
yes,
dialectical करवा रहा है उनका, कि
yes, sir.
both of them, the form and matter, are acting contradictory, and because of this, higher form is being realized. Higher form.
Okay, like in Aristotle, it is constant, but in Hegel, he is showing it is dynamic and it is constantly changing.
In Aristotle, basically, Aristotle says that every substance, which is basically an admixture of form and matter, has its own entalpy.
Yes, sir.
Its self-contained end, and in the light of that pure form, it keeps on progressing. But he did not say that how this happens through negation, that old is discarded and then a new thing is happened.
Can we say Aristotle and Hegel both, in terms like teleological ends, they are
Yes,
similar, sir?
yes, they are same. Only logically they are different.
And
Teleologically, all are same. Yes. There is an underlying similarity. That's why when the Westerners talk about Hegel, the German people, when they talk about Hegel, they say that Hegel is a sort of completion of all the Greek philosophy. In a way, he has completed all the Greek philosophers. Just like how they used to say that Aristotle completed everyone before him, because some were talking about matter as substance, some were talking about ideas as substance. Aristotle spoke eloquently and said that both idea and matter are the substance, together are the substance. So Hegel ने भी हमसे पुराने वाले जो थे उन सबको synthesize किया. He synthesized matter and spirit. He synthesized contradiction and identity, everything, through a dynamic evolutionary process.
So same thing we can say for Leibniz, potential.
Potential and
Like the potential to achieve its highest form.
हाँ, मतलब माइंड वाली बात तो सब में सेम ही है. माइंड, कॉन्शियसनेस, आइडिया का एवोल्यूशन वाली बात तो सेम ही है सब. बस वो होता कैसे है उसी को ये डिफरेंस करता है. और मोनाड्स में ये था कि मोनाड्स जो थे वो बहुत सारे थे, है ना, और सबकी अपनी अपनी आइडेंटिटी थी. यहाँ पे सबकी आइडेंटिटी एक तरीके से मर्ज है वो उसमें एब्सोल्यूट के अंदर.
Okay.
अंडरलाइंग सिमिलरिटी तो है, यू कैन नॉट रिजेक्ट इट. एंड दिस यू विल अंडरस्टैंड बेटर जब आप शंकराचार्य पढ़ोगे इंडिया में, बिकॉज शंकराचार्य ने भी ऐसे ही किया. उनसे पहले जो व्यूज थे उन सबको इसी तरीके से सिंथेसाइज कर दिया. सो इफ समवन आस्क्स यू व्हाट इज द रियलिटी ऑफ फिजिकल वर्ल्ड इन हीगल सिस्टम, तो क्या बोलोगे? व्हाट इज द रियलिटी ऑफ फिजिकल वर्ल्ड इन हीगल्स system or Hegel's absolute idealism? What will you say?
Well, yes, sir. It is a manifestation, sort of. He is trying to absolute is trying to self-realize itself through
Hmm.
the
So it's part
physical
of the
world.
it's part of the absolute,
One
no?
of the,
It's
yes,
part
sir. It is
part
part
of
of
it.
the absolute.
Yes.
Yes, sir. But individuality and freedom is sort of retaining instead of completely being determined, like in Spinoza, sir.
Hmm. Hmm. But some people claim that Hegel is a deterministic person. Why do you think they claim that he is deterministic? There will be now from now onwards, we are going to study contemporary Western philosophy. So this entire contemporary Western philosophy is a kind of you can say एक तरीके का वो था ना कि रोष, एक तरह के गुस्सा है हीगल के आइडियलिज्म के खिलाफ, because Hegel's idealism culminated into a very powerful state, emergence of Nazism, okay, these German state और फिर फ्रांस और फिर सारी वर्ल्ड वॉर, क्योंकि नेशनलिज्म वो है बहुत हाई लेवल पे, और भी कॉल इट जिंगोइज्म, जिंगोइज्म शब्द आया फिर बाद में, द अल्ट्रा नेशनलिज्म, द सेल्फ कॉन्ग्रेचुलेटरी नेशनलिज्म, ये हीगल की फिलोसफी से बहुत इमर्ज किया है, बिकॉज एवरी स्टेट यूज्ड टू बिलीव दैट आई एम द गॉड, आई एम द गॉड, और सारे गॉड एक दूसरे से लड़ लिए और इंसानों का नुकसान हो गया. तो देयर विल बी फिलोसोफर्स हु विल से दैट दिस वाज हीगल्स, मतलब हीगल की जो फिलोसफी थी वो बहुत ही खराब फिलोसफी है, ये ट्रेटर्स की फिलोसफी है, इसका इंसान की एग्जिस्टेंस से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, इसलिए इसके खिलाफ एक मूवमेंट खड़ा होगा, एग्जिस्टेंशियलिज्म. People will talk about elimination of metaphysics because of Hegel's speculative metaphysical system. इसकी वजह से जो जो चीजें हुई, people talk about elimination of metaphysics, the rejection of idealism. अब देखोगे हीगल की फिलोसफी की वजह से इतना ज्यादा जो है सारा, अब जितनी भी वेस्टर्न फिलोसफी में पढ़ेंगे आगे, वो सब रिएक्शन अगेंस्ट हीगल है. इट इज ऑल द रिएक्शन अगेंस्ट हीगल सिस्टम. इतना ज्यादा पावरफुल इंसान है हीगल. इसने मोरालिटी को, स्टेट को, फ्रीडम को बहुत इस तरीके से डिफाइन कर दिया कि टू मेक जर्मनी, वैसे मतलब इनकी पूरी फिलोसफी बेसिकली इसलिए थी कि जर्मन स्टेट को उनको पावरफुल बनाना था. ही वाज अ प्रोफेसर एट न्यूरेमबर्ग यूनिवर्सिटी थी, न्यूरेमबर्ग यूनिवर्सिटी है वहाँ पे अभी भी है जर्मनी में, तो उसमें प्रोफेसर थे ये. तो कांट ने जो मिस्ट्री क्रिएट कर दी थी फिनोमेना नोमेना डुअलिज्म वाली, उसको रिजॉल्व करने के लिए उस समय इंटेलेक्चुअल सर्किल में सबसे बड़ा नाम था हीगल का. ऑल्दो आपको ये सुन के बहुत अजीब लगेगा कि हीगल इनिशियल ईयर्स में कोई बहुत ज्यादा इंटेलेक्चुअल व्यक्ति थे नहीं. ही वॉज अ वेरी ऑर्डिनरी पर्सन, मतलब शायद अच्छे से पढ़ लिख भी नहीं सकते थे. हीगल का खुद का एवोल्यूशन भी डायलेक्टिकली हुआ है ना, शायद उन्होंने खुद की हिस्ट्री पढ़ के उनको डायलेक्टिकल याद आया होगा, बिकॉज इनिशियली वॉज वेरी मतलब नॉट वेरी गुड इन स्टडीज, कॉन्सेंट्रेशन वगैरह, बट went on to become professor वहां पे, और उसके बाद he succeeded Kant in the with the great philosopher. अब कांट जो थे वो एक इंटरनेशनलिस्ट थे. he was internationalist in the sense कि उन्होंने ह्यूमन डिग्निटी, ह्यूमैनिटी को ज्यादा फोकस किया था एज कम्पेयर टू नेशनल बाउंड्री. इसलिए आप कांट को एथिक्स में पढ़ते हो, कांट जो है वो यूनिवर्सल एथिक्स देता है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ हिज कैटेगोरिकल इंपेरेटिव्स, और बड़ा ही लॉफ्टी आइडियल्स खड़े करता है कि व्हाट इज मॉरलिटी, है ना, विच कैन बी अप्लाइड यूनिवर्सली, जैसे बिब्लिकल कंसेप्ट है, डू नॉट डू अनटू अदर्स विच यू कैन नॉट बी डन बाय. बड़ी लॉफ्टी प्रिंसिपल भी है, इंसान को कभी अपना मीन्स मत, अपनी एंड्स का मीन्स मत बनाओ, है ना, ट्रीट ह्यूमैनिटी एज एन एंड इन इटसेल्फ. तो कांट वाज एन इंटरनेशनलिस्ट, बट देयर वाज अ नीड इन जर्मनी फॉर दिस नेशनलिज्म. तो हीगल की जो फिलोसफी इन अ वे इट इज आल्सो contextually situated in the time of that period. So if you have to understand a philosopher, you have to also understand in which period and what conditions he is giving his philosophy, because all people are affected by the time and space circumstances of that period. तो हीगल भी ऐसे ही थे, उन्होंने जो पूरा एब्सोल्यूट का कॉन्सेप्ट दिए बेसिकली जर्मन स्टेट को एब्सोल्यूट बनाने के लिए. German culture, German religion, German everything, it should be called as superior, and people should not object to. कांट ने बहुत ज्यादा फ्रीडम कर दी है ना. अब इतनी ज्यादा फ्रीडम हो जाएगी तो क्या होगा, chaos. So to resolve this chaos, Hegel had to give this absolute whole version. But this absolute का जो उन्होंने दिया system, it was his genius only कि जो उन्होंने पूरा dialectical logic और ये पूरा बताया, और पूरी philosophy उन्होंने पढ़ी थी वेस्ट की, तो in a way has synthesized all of them together. तो नेशनलिज्म को बहुत ज्यादा प्रमोट किया हीगल ने, और उसके इम्प्लीकेशंस बहुत ज्यादा नुकसानदायक हुए. नाजिज्म आया, हिटलर जैसे लीडर आए. वहां पे इटली में देखोगे तो इटली में आपको पता है कौन था, एक व्यक्ति थे, मुसोलिनी. ही वाज आल्सो अ ट्रेटर. ऐसे ट्रेटर्स पैदा हुए हीगल की फिलॉसफी पढ़ के. तो आगे सारा रिएक्शन ही रिएक्शन देखेगा हीगल के खिलाफ. तो फिजिकल वर्ल्ड की हमने बात करी. फिजिकल वर्ल्ड को इन अ वे ही हैज रिड्यूस्ड इट्स रियलिटी, that it is just a part, a limited manifestation of the absolute. It is not an absolute reality, है ना. इसके लिए एक शब्द इस्तेमाल करता है हीगल, that physical world, the phenomenal world is actual but not real. It is actual but not real. So what is real for Hegel? Hegel के लिए real है which is real for all the times, and that is absolute only. What is real for Hegel? Which is real for all the time. For example, which has the essential component of not changing also. Past, present, future में अपने वो essence को maintain किए हुए है. जैसे absolute है, जैसे आपको ध्यान होगा स्पिनोजा ने कैसे बताया था, what is reality? Which is in itself and conceived through itself, which is both epistemologically and metaphysically independent. So he also says, what is reality? Which is real for all the time. So physical world is actual. Actual means it has some existence, but it is not real because it changes. It keeps on changing, and it will be merged into a higher synthesis. When it becomes, the material world becomes immaterial. Okay, it merges into higher consciousness. So physical world is called as actual but not real. It is a part of the manifestation of the absolute. So how we will say it. So problem क्या थी, कांट ने इस फिजिकल वर्ल्ड तक ही हमारी नॉलेज को सिमिट कर दिया था. हीगल बोलते हैं कि आपको समझना चाहिए था कि अभी एवोल्यूशन बाकी है और आगे और आएगा. तो अगर आप थोड़ा सा समझ लगाते अपने माइंड की, तो यू वुड हैव अंडरस्टूड हाउ एब्सोल्यूट इज अनफोल्डिंग. और एब्सोल्यूट के अनफोल्डिंग को समझने के लिए यू हैव टू लुक एट रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली, सी हाउ इट हैज इवॉल्व्ड टिल नाउ. आगे क्या होगा, what will be future, how will you know? Study the past, right? One who wants to predict the future will always study the past. Hegel says the same thing. Look at the past, look retrospectively how this absolute has evolved. Similarly, it is going to evolve in the future. Till then, kab tak, when all tensions, all contradictions are resolved into that absolute. Yes. So I guess you might have understood this. हमारा question था how Hegel has resolved Kant's problem. So first was dualism he has resolved. Dialectical development has resolved the antinomies, contradictions. Subject-object duality he has resolved. He has also resolved the abstract morality given by Kant. जैसा भी मैंने बताया, Kant had given a very lofty ideals of morality. इसको आप ethics में पढ़ते होगे, categorical imperatives. आप में से कोई बता सकता है what is categorical imperatives if you have studied in ethics? This was called as a very abstract kind of morality, a formal morality. Hegel has given a concrete shape to it. He has made morality concrete. But to understand how he has made morality concrete, first of all, we need to understand what was categorical imperative of Kant. आप में से किसी को पता है what is categorical imperative?
It may be categorically justifying some acts.
Categorically. And
Yes,
imperative. Imperative means which must be done.
No.
Where discretion is not allowed. Categorical means where discretion is not allowed, which must be done. There is no discretion here. And against, so Kant highlighted two kinds of imperative. First is categorical imperative, and another is hypothetical imperative. Kant says that our reason dictates two kinds of imperatives. हम जब बुद्धि से सोचते हैं अपने कि हमको कैसा कंडक्ट करना चाहिए, तो दो तरह के imperatives निकल के आते हैं. एक को उसने कहा categorical imperative, दूसरे को कहा hypothetical imperative. Hypotheticals are the ones which are desirable but not necessary. But not necessary. For example, जैसे maintaining good health. It's a hypothetical imperative. It is desirable to maintain good health, to stay in shape, but it's not an imperative. You will not become immoral if you do not go to gym, if you do not maintain your physique, a good health. You will not become immoral because of that. But what if you steal? Then, even if you are hungry and if you steal, then you are immoral, says Kant. Because in categorical imperative, there is universalism. There is no discretion. But in hypothetical imperative, there is discretion. Person can exercise their own choice. This is contingent, dependent on time, space, and circumstances. This is necessary, imperative. So he talks about three kinds of categorical imperative. First is what he calls the universalization principle. This universalization principle says that act according to that maxim which you can. तो एक maxim देते हैं वो एक formula action के लिए कि हम कैसे decide करें what is right and what is wrong. So it gives a formula for this, a recipe for this. That only do those things which you feel can become a universal law. So only do those things which you also will accept as a universal law. For example, if you want to speak lie to your partner, think of it. Can it become a universal law? Will I be in content? Will I be accepting it if my partner also speaks lie to me? You will certainly not. You will like to them, lying to them, but you will not like that they will lie to you. So this cannot be a universalizing principle. So this is immoral. Okay. And if we talk about helping others, then yes, it can be universalized. So it is an immoral act. So it is a moral act. Because you will also be liking that whenever you are in need, you want someone to help you. So act as per that maxim, which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Your actions can be universalized or not. ये सोचो हमेशा. Can this action be universalized or not? Second, he talks about that act to treat humanity as end in itself and never as mere means. So this statement was very significant. It laid the foundation of philosophical humanism. है ना, जो एनलाइटनमेंट दौर आया, हम बात करेंगे पॉलिटिकल फिलोसफी में, जब हम बात करेंगे विल टॉक अबाउट एनलाइटनमेंट रेनेसां. तो एक एनलाइटनमेंट का जो दौर आया, जब लोगों ने समझने की शुरुआत करी वापस से कि व्हाट इज ह्यूमन डिग्निटी, व्हाट इज हाउ वी कैन थिंक इररिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ द रिलीजन. अब कांट ने जो मोरालिटी दी है ये रिलीजन से नहीं आ रही डायरेक्टली, ऑल्दो सम ऑफ इट प्रिंसिपल कैन कोरिलेट टू रिलीजन ऑल्सो, but he has not sourced his morality from Christianity or Gita or any other religious text. This is a basis of secular morality, which has obviously correlates with religious morality as well. And he thinks that these principles will be followed by people only when they believe in religion, because religion acts as a moral booster. It's a psychological moral booster. So we should always treat people as end in itself. It laid the foundation of philosophical humanism, internationalism, that people should not limit themselves on the basis of identities. So it was also against sort of colonialism, because what colonialism did, the colonial master used to treat the countries, the colonized countries, as their property, the means to their own ends, right? It also discouraged slavery. So he was a humanist in nature. He was a humanist person. और फिर उसने बोला कि किंगडम ऑफ हर चीज हमको ऐसे करना चाहिए जैसे किंगडम ऑफ एंड्स में हम रह रहे हैं ना, हमेशा एंड को देखना चाहिए. हमारा एंड, हमारे मीन्स शुड ऑलवेज बी पायस. हमको सिर्फ नैरो थिंकिंग नहीं करनी चाहिए कि भाई अभी जस्ट मुझे क्या मिल जाएगा, है ना. टनल व्यू नहीं रखना चाहिए. शुड नॉट बी, शुड नॉट होल्ड अ मायोपिक व्यू. We should look about the larger ends and should adopt pious means to achieve these larger ends. ठीक है. गुड एंड्स के लिए अपने आप को सेक्रीफाइस भी कर दो, कांट सकते हैं नहीं बात. So these were the 3 principles, but all these principles were lofty, very idealistic. सुनने में तो बहुत अच्छे लगते हैं, but who follows? Who follows? The government servant can't follow, can't categorical imperative. Okay. A policeman cannot punish the person so severely. Okay. Sometimes we also have to lie in order to for the good of others, right? We have to do what we call as white lie. कई बार सफेद झूठ, थोड़ा सा झूठ बोलना पड़ता है हमको, ताकि for a betterment of, for someone else benefit. But Kant will not allow this. So these are the lofty models that he presented. Hegel, in a way, made this morality concrete. He said that instead of having these abstract rules as guiding principles, freedom is rather realized. Freedom is not rule-based, it's realization-based. Rule-based किसकी है? कांट की. उसने 3 रूल्स बना दिए. Realization based किसकी है? Hegel की. Hegel says freedom is not rule based, it's realization based. Through participation in the ethical institutions like family, civil society, and state. First of all, you perform your duties in family, then the family members take care of you. You have some freedom, then realize, okay, the freedom always comes with duty. Hegel will also say this, that never talk about rights. Always talk about rights are always correlated with duty. Every right has a corresponding duty to it. You cannot have just rights. Okay. Every right has corresponding duty. If you have a right to have a smooth pass over the road, you also have the duty to obey the traffic laws. Isn't it? If you want your country to progress, you also have the duty to pay taxes. This is how government justify taxation. So he says that this freedom is realized, it is not made by rules. So whenever you participate in these institutions, what you call as family, civil society, and state, you follow the dictates of the state. आपको याद होगा वो स्टेटमेंट बोला भी हमने, कहाँ गया वो स्टेटमेंट? बड़ा ही सिग्निफिकेंट स्टेटमेंट था वो. Perfect willing obedience.
Perfect obedience to the perfect laws of the perfect state.
The perfect state is perfect freedom. Doesn't it pave the platform for leaders like Hitler to rise? This kind of definition. Hitler would love this definition. If you allow Modi ji will also love this definition. I'm not saying Modi ji is Hitler, but any leader would love this. If people follow the state's command unquestioned, every leader would love this. Every leader is democratic only till they are not elected. Once you get elected, you become traitor. It's not about communist, it's not about rightist, it's not about centrist. It's just that when you attain power, power corrupts. It's the nature of power and also the selfish nature of men to get corrupted when you rise to power. I'm not saying that some leader is corrupted, just giving you an example. So Okay, so in that sense, you will achieve freedom. Freedom is realized, not role play. So these are the ways through which Hegel has improved upon Kant. He has resolved the Kant's contradiction. So if there is a question in future, we can also answer it in this sense. So I guess you would have got many knowledge यहाँ पे ethics का भी और in general बाकी भी, और जब हम पेपर 2 पढ़ेंगे सोशल एंड पॉलिटिकल फिलोसफी, वहाँ आपको बहुत मजा आएगा, बिकॉज वहाँ से आपकी एथिक्स की नॉलेज भी और स्ट्रांग होगी, और आई वुड से बहुत ज्यादा आपका ऐसे के लिए कंटेंट डेवलप होगा. जो पॉलिटिकल फिलोसफर्स हैं जो हमको यहाँ पे मेटाफिजिक्स में भी हम पढ़ रहे हैं, लाइक कांट, हीगल, ये और ज्यादा हमको क्लियर हो गया. आई गेस अभी भी क्लियर हो गए होंगे, वहाँ पे और ज्यादा क्लियर हो जाएंगे. नाउ यू कैन आस्क योर क्वेश्चंस.
Sir, I have a small
Sir,
doubt. Sir, has Hegel defined what is absolute? Has he given any characteristics or features of absolutism he is saying?
Kiran, you are not audible. Somehow your voice is breaking. Can you please repeat?
Sir, has Hegel defined what is absolute, sir?
Can you type your question? It's not audible.
Yes, sir, I will try it, sir.
So he's saying that has Hegel defined the features of absolute?
Has he defined
Features of absolute.
features of absolute? Yes, yes. He has defined the features of absolute. Good question. He has defined the features of absolute. Yes. So, sir, has Hegel defined what absolute is? What are the characteristics of absolute? हाँ, just like जैसे अभी तक हमने देखा था, ऐसे ही आप बोल रहे हो ना? Yes, he has defined. So he says that absolute has following features. You can just note them in your notes, printed notes. First of all, that absolute is one. In number. If something has to be absolute, it has to be one only. There cannot be two absolute. Otherwise, the second one will depend on the other, and we cannot resolve the problem. So it is one in number. Second is, this particular absolute, Hegel's absolute, is objective in nature. Objective in status. It does not depend on perceivers or knowers. It has its own independent existence. मतलब, while absolute in its own process of self-knowing, he exists as an independent entity. That's why they say that absolute does not have its own history but contains history without number. This is the contradictory nature of absolute, that it is objective in nature. It does not depend on the perceiver's knowledge. Third thing he says that this absolute is all inclusive. So absolute is not empty. It is all inclusive. This means everything and every being is in the absolute. There is nothing which is apart from the or outside of the absolute. Nothing outside of it. Fourth, that absolute is all harmonious. All harmonious means that absolute is not like a storeroom or a static thing where things are just placed separately. Rather, everything in absolute is placed as per a system and harmony. Just like how Leibniz established harmony. So harmoniously, everything is placed in absolute. It's all harmonious. That's why we can understand this harmony through dialectical logic. It's so-called pre-established harmony or the essential harmony within the absolute can be understood through this, how the absolute manifests itself through the logic. So it's all harmonious. And fifth is it's a sentient whole. He says absolute is a sentient whole. This means that the absolute is an organic whole. Everything is part of the absolute, right? And they are contained as a, just like organ, हमारे organs होते हैं, different organs, they exist as part, but body is the whole. So body is that sentient whole in which different organs of the body are present. They are not separated from the body. They have no existence apart from the body. इस तरीके से 5 फीचर्स उसने बताए थे एब्सोल्यूट के. और एक स्टेटमेंट आप लिख सकते हो ब्रैडले वाला कि एब्सोल्यूट does not have its own history, but it contains history without number. Yes. You want to say something? These are the 5 features.
Okay, sir.
Okay. If you have noted it,
The
did you
fifth
notice?
one is visible, sir.
Fifth one says it's a sentient whole. Senti.
I
Means
think
it's
the screen has
its screen has disappeared.
It's stuck. Maybe
Screen is stuck. So let me take a screenshot of it. Let me take a screenshot and I'll share. I'll share the screenshot. Okay, so I've sent the screenshot. You can look at this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So these are the features of absolute. Otherwise, other things are there. जो हमने अभी बात करा है वो बाकी same है. So I'll post some questions tomorrow and also the discussion video of Kant and Hegel's question, through which you will understand Kant and Hegel again. It will be revised and you will be able to solve the questions of previous year of UPSC. Okay. We'll start with the other things from probably Monday, Tuesday onward. The other aspects of philosophy. वो तो छोटे-छोटे ही हैं तो जल्दी हो जाएगा. Then we'll start probably from 18th or 20th. We'll start with Indian philosophy. Okay. So if you do not have any question, you can end now.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All the best. Good night.